This video was originally going to be centered around the character of Aqua Hoshino until the events of the ending had occurred. The ending of Oshino Code damages a lot of the themes of the series as well as regressing a lot of the characters' developments, as well as making some of them feel pointless. A commonality among these problems, which we'll be discussing in this video, is how indecisive the story tends to be. It establishes one thing for a character and explores it in detail, then it decides that it doesn't want to stick to this trait and goes for something completely different, all the while hurting the build-up of the former. Needless to say, despite the ending doing all this damage to the story, there are still a ton of great things about it, so this video will be essentially a mix of the pros and cons of Oshinoko, which is something we haven't done in a while. While I do think that Oshinoko's focal point is the critique of the entertainment industry, I think there is a bigger overarching theme, the concept of being shackled. This is highlighted in every major character in the story, from Aqua being shackled to revenge, Ai being shackled to her legacy and lies, and Kana being shackled to her previous glory, the list goes on. Please be advised for manga spoilers while watching this video, as we'll be going through the entire story as a whole. While the entertainment industry is one of Oshinoko's most prominent themes, I would argue that there is a more important one, the concept of being shackled. This is prevalent in many characters in the story such as Aqua, Kana, Hikaru, and Ai. Each one of them has something that they base their actions around, whether it be out of hatred, love, or anything alike. For this segment, we'll be mainly going over Aqua and Hikaru. Starting off with the star of the video, Aqua Hoshino. It's quite obvious from the very beginning that he is shackled by his desire for revenge. What makes Aqua more compelling is that on top of this goal, there are a multitude of layers that are on top of this obsession. For one, he is self-sacrificial to a fault, as he is one to play the villain if need be and all in favor of helping the people he cares for. This is evident in his actions in Sweet Today's acting, as he plays the villain to try to improve the situation for Kana given what he's heard regarding the set. He must be the only one in this path and absolutely nobody else. It's why he is so adamant in having Ruby become an idol. She may face the same issues as Ai, which may lead to death, and so he combats this by impersonating multiple figures just to crush her dreams for the sake of protecting her. He is not worthy of any dreams, and acting must only be a means to an end, even if he finds it to be fun. As long as it's for revenge, then it is something he must do. This aspect of Aqua is explored in various ways. The story ensures this way of living is flawed and destructive. We see this in how tormented he feels over Ai's death, the guilt he experiences over the events that occurred that day, and it's what prevents him from having any sort of enjoyment in life. How dare he enjoy anything when the murder of his beloved mother is still breathing? Anything that can be viewed as passionate must be converted into vengeance. In a sense, revenge is Aqua's passion, and that is tragic.
芝居に夢中になって演じてて楽しいって思う瞬間がある。お前がパニックを起こすのは決まってそういう時だ。演技を楽しむことへの罪悪感、ひいては愛。お前の母親への罪悪感。演技を楽しむこともできず、まるで復讐するために演じてるようなものじゃねえか。一度演技から離れて治療に専念するのも手だぞ。
このままでいい。俺がどうなろうとどうでもいい。愛の無念を晴らすことだけが俺の生きる意味だ。
だったら取るべき選択肢は一つだぞ。辛くしんどい選択だ。お前はもう演技を楽しむな。
Oshinoko is quick to constantly remind us that letting go of this goal is the answer, and Aqua agrees with this notion. He does not want to constantly seek revenge and only believes that he must. Goro is a manifestation of all those regrets and guilt, and it's what keeps him chained to this suffering. It's why he doesn't think as effectively upon hearing that Taiki's father committed suicide. It's quite an obvious question to ask that perhaps it was the mother who had the affair, not the father, which would mean that Aqua's dad is not Taiki's. And when accounting for the time of death, it cannot be possible as Uehara had died before Ai moved to a new place. Aqua is desperately looking for any excuses to not believe that his father is alive and wants to escape by any means necessary. He yearns to be freed from these shackles as he is deep down just a normal teenager, one who yearns to experience high school life just as anybody else. Just a quick reminder to let you all know that if you've been enjoying the content, to be sure to like, comment, and subscribe for more. Back to the video. One who yearns to experience a romantic relationship and has a crush. Initially believing that he is not worthy of happiness, he gradually wonders whether or not he actually can experience it, and it's via two characters, Akane Kurokawa and Kana Arima.
ずっと俺は恋愛とかしてはいけないと思ってて、だけどもういいのかもと思ってて、だから今更だけどちゃんと考えてるっていうか。
別にいいでしょ。恋愛の自由は基本的人権よ。
While the story does hint various times of how it will end, such as Aqua stating that he's doing everything for Ruby so that she'd be able to live in this world when he's gone, or attempting to cut ties with Akane after fully deciding to commit to revenge after finding out that his father is alive, this just isn't the way to go about it. The issue is not that this is a tragic ending, rather the constant indecisiveness of where to take the story. For example, the story attempts to stick to Aqua's revenge by having him attempt to deceive everybody and fully embrace everything, even if everybody around him will despise him for his actions. Then, the story decides to suggest that Aqua may be freed from this revenge and will be able to have a positive ending. Now, this in of itself is fine, as it makes sense within the context of the story to potentially have Aqua jump right back into his tendencies and decide to fully commit to everything, and perhaps setting things up that he may be saved, with all the clues that were shown around this portion of the story. It's what the movie was supposed to symbolize, a means to move on from this initial goal of murder and kill Hikaru metaphorically. Kill him socially and use this movie as a means to move on and make amends with the past. Hell, if it wasn't apparent enough that the story decided to pursue a route of foreshadowing Aqua's happy ending, let's take a look at his dream when he speaks to Goro, who also has fully moved on from the revenge given the fact that he's found out that Ruby is Serena. He tells Aqua that what he does with this knife is entirely up to him now, and that the two are separate people. And Aqua has a whole life ahead of him, so go out and pursue your dreams and passions. As Gotanda puts it, if Aqua were to kill Hikaru, he would make everybody miserable. Now, with everything established, it makes no sense as to why the story decides to change its mind again and make everything a mess, especially with Aqua's character and the exploration of this theme with him. Taking this ending in mind, it contradicts everything Aqua's character was going for. Aqua had decided not to kill Hikaru for Ruby's sake, as Ruby herself has decided to forgive others. As I said, the movie represents this, until it doesn't. It's genuinely incomprehensible as to why Aqua ends up killing Hikaru anyways, as this severely damages a lot of his character, especially for the fact that this suicide feels pointless and dumb. He throws everything away by killing himself alongside Hikaru, all for the sake of Ruby's career. He was apparently born to protect Ruby and not for himself. Aqua likely feels immense over what happened to Serena, so this can be viewed as a means to save her when he wasn't able to previously. But again, the fact that he claims that he was solely born just to protect her comes off as sudden and random, as there had been absolutely no build-up nor implication towards this throughout the entire narrative, as the focal point of Aqua is his pursuit of revenge and the many internal clashes he has with it, whether or not he is fit for happiness and can live for himself, all the while protecting the people he cares for. It is quite obvious that Aqua's death is meant to parallel Ai's, where instead of her getting stabbed and attempting to love her murderer, it's Aqua stabbing himself and having every ounce of hatred for Hikaru. What makes it even more nonsensical is that Nino's confession had the police get involved anyways. So had Aqua just simply recorded Hikaru's confession and reported him, they could have potentially just gotten Nino to confess and had Hikaru arrested. The only thing I can really deduce for a reason is that Hikaru has been shown to be capable of getting others to do his bidding, as seen in Nino and Ryosuke, so perhaps Aqua assumed that Hikaru cannot stay alive as he could still somehow get others to kill Ruby, even if he were arrested. But I digress. Overall, he is just forever shackled to his revenge despite the fact that the story builds up against it, all the while pointlessly dying, losing everything he ever cherished. However, Aqua is somehow not one of the worst cases of exploring this theme of the story, because that title goes to Hikaru Kameki. And it really pains me to say this, as I think he was one of the most interesting characters in the story. He does follow the theme of being shackled, but the exploration of it with him is somehow even more indecisive than Aqua. His chains are none other than the legendary idol herself, Ai Hoshino. Everything he does revolves around her, or more specifically, her radiance. Hikaru is obsessed with the idea of Ai Hoshino's perfection, as she was the one who saved him from a traumatic sexual experience as a child. He is fully reliant on Ai's love and is terrified of being left behind. Anyone who dares tarnish the perfection that is Ai deserves to die, and it's likely why he vowed to kill Ruby, as she was gradually surpassing Ai in her radiance. He is a clear contrast to Ai when it comes to her character. While Ai is one who isn't sure if she's capable of loving somebody, Hikaru is one who is unsure if he's worthy of ever being loved. Both characters were never viewed for who they were. They were nothing but objects to the people around them, whether it be an object of idolization in the case of Ai, or an object of lust in the case of Hikaru. Nobody understood Hikaru but Ai, and Hikaru believed the two to be peas in a pod, as both were deprived of love, as the weight of life is what constantly crushes him, and it's why he kept killing famous actors. The more sins he commits via murder, the more he's able to feel Ai's presence, as the feeling he has for Ai is sin itself after what he had done to her, so by increasing the weight of that sin, then he'd be able to feel Ai more. This is all great content for Hikaru, as it really manages to characterize him superbly and utilize him to explore the theme of being shackled, as well as being the antagonist to oppose Aqua and everything Aqua stands for. However, he suffers from Aqua's fatal indecisiveness when it comes to his character. The narrative sets Hikaru up as a broken individual that is a byproduct of his circumstances. This is further supported in Ruby in this scene where she states that nobody is born evil, It's what the message Ai left for Aqua was going for. It encapsulated Ai's love for Hikaru and why she left him. He was close to breaking, and the message shows that there was somebody who truly loved Hikaru for who he was, even if she wasn't fully sure of it. She wanted him to be saved and freed from his shackles, and requested so from Aqua. It's a powerful and timeless love letter that is meant to express Ai's love for Hikaru. Their dynamic heavily parallels Aqua and Akane's, and everything regarding Ai's message highlights this point in detail. However, almost immediately, the plot does a 180 and has Hikaru kill Ruby anyways. So what was the point of that entire chapter? Was it to show that Ai never understood Hikaru and that he is beyond saving? It could potentially be the case, as Hikaru never also understood Ai, but I would disagree because of scenes like these, where it showed that Hikaru was willing to turn himself in once he had heard of that message. Suddenly, Hikaru is a villain devoid of sympathy, and things feel very one-dimensional. I'm confused as to whether or not this is intentional in the sense that Hikaru was simply trying to come off as a victim, but it still doesn't change the fact that the story builds up this entire narrative for a character and suddenly decides to assassinate it when it decides that this isn't what it should be. It's strange, as it really does contradict everything Hikaru stood for. We've had many implications indicating that Hikaru was a broken soul, yet he randomly becomes comically evil. It is sad, as Hikaru was one of the most unfortunate victims of Aka's indecisiveness, which led to an extremely disappointing conclusion for her character. To make matters worse, it makes the entire movie arc feel null. What is the purpose of it if Aqua decided to murder Hikaru when the entire point of the movie is to try to do anything but that? One of the story's most active discussions is Aqua's relationship with Akane and Kana. Who is he romantically interested in? How do these two characters complement Aqua? To put it into perspective, they are opposite sides of a spectrum and are written in direct opposition to everything they stand for, as well as what they mean to Aqua. In Kana's case, she is the one who brings the best out of Aqua, the one who manages to have him forget all his struggles, to be able to feel free and truly be himself when talking to her. It's poetic, because one can infer that she is the only one who could truly free him from all these shackles, and this is proven in how little she is involved in the overarching narrative. Her relationship to Aqua is vile to add humanity to him as well, and is capable of breaking his shell. She makes Aqua feel much more relatable. An example is how her presence is able to give opportunity to show Aqua is also capable of being hurt by Kana's harsh attitude at times. It is important to have a character that goes against a commonality in the story so as to explore different variations, whether it be a theme, plot point, or anything alike. In this case, Kana is one of the only major characters in the story who is unaware of Aqua's revenge. Kana is absolutely essential for the story and important to ensure that Aqua does not come off as an edgelord who is solely focused on revenge, and this is evident in their conversation. It is quite apparent almost instantly that Aqua is in love with Kana, and he cares about her deeply. Maybe a little too much, as he's willing to avoid her for her sake, as he's terrified of the possibility of having her picture taken with him, which could lead to her demise. Kana is terrified of loneliness, and it's why she constantly yearns for attention. This is further highlighted in her acting, a kind of acting that manages to captivate everybody and lead them into gazing at her acting. It's why she was so glad to hear that Aqua is still active in the industry. Somebody out there is struggling alongside her, and that in of itself can be salvation. She is not alone, and she and Aqua are alike in a couple of ways. For one, she too is also shackled by something, and that is her old glory. Many of her actions and feelings revolve around this. Like Aqua, she is self-sacrificial, but rather than doing it for the sake of others, she does it not to upset them. For instance, she inhibits her acting to match up with the other actors around her and attempts to ensure that the light is focused on the star of the show, as seen in Tokyo Blade. It may be the logical thing to do, but is it the right thing to do for Kana Arima?
そう、これが正しいの。黒川茜がいい演技をするなら、こっちはそれを立てる演技をしてあげるべき。いい作品になるのがみんなの幸せ。自我はいらない。これが私のやり方。
This is not to label Kana as somebody who is incapable of sacrificing things for the sake of others, as she does exactly this in the movie arc by attempting to cut ties with Ruby, just so she could understand her role as Ai better. She is filled with various excuses and lies, all to cover up the trauma that she had experienced throughout her childhood, ranging from constant negativity to a severe lack of self-confidence. If Kana was not famous, then does she even matter? If her own mother neglected her, then what remains of Kana Arima?
羨ましい。みんなに見てもらえて求められて私のことを見てくれる人は誰もいない。ママもマネージャーも私のことほったらかしてファンですら見てるのは昔の私の面影だけ。誰か私を見てそれだけを十数年叫び続けてきたのに私が必要だと言ってそれさえ言ってくれるなら私はどれだけでも頑張ってみせる。あの子は使えるって言って そしたら馬車馬のように働くよ。頑張ったねって褒めて。そしたらもっともっと頑張るのに。誰か私はここにいていいって言って。
It's that fear of not being needed that is instilled within her, whether it be a mix of parental neglect, the pressure from everybody around her, or the genuine passion of acting which creates a desperate attempt to want to continue her career as one. It's no wonder why she is such a pushover and a people pleaser. I really think there's something compelling in how Kana and Akane treat rivalry. Initially, Kana seemingly looks to be the one to want the easy way out by hoping that Akane would eventually just quit, while Akane is insistent in bringing out Kana's full potential and attempting to defeat her at her best. If she is able to beat Akane, then she will be freed from the shackles of her childhood, and she will finally be an independent actor.
これだけ可愛い子がいる業界で、その中でも特別に可愛いと言われる子が生まれるのはなぜなんだろう。ズバリ、可愛さの説得力さ。有名なアイドルグループに所属していたり、何かの賞を取ってる子は実物以上に可愛く見えるものだろ。それと同じ。私は特別に可愛いという嘘を信じさせてくれる説得力。僕はそれをスター性と呼んでいる。あの時の彼女にはそれがあった。
It is only with Aqua that Kana is able to run her mouth wild when she realizes that she has the upper hand on him, and truly have conversations about the most irrelevant of things, and that is what a relationship is really all about. They aren't that frequent, but the scenes we see of them do the simplest of things, whether it be Kana trying to make Aqua feel better by giving him a bag of chips, or asking him to tell her a joke, does wonders for their dynamic. Hell, Kana was prepared to move on from her crush on Aqua by trying to consider him an important friend. Unlike Aqua, she manages to free herself from the shackles of her old glory by being able to stand on her own 2 feet as a full-fledged actor. It's unfortunate that Aqua's death does damage this dynamic a bit, as despite that everything that was built up for the two of them, it almost looks like Kana was able to move on from Aqua way too quickly, and that is thanks to how rushed the finale was, making their relation feel strange. Akane is the most interesting character in the series because she is the one who goes against all the themes presented, whether it be lies, being shackled, or anything of the sort. Despite being a character known to be capable of perfectly deducing and mimicking others, she is one of the only honest characters in Oshi no Ko. It may seem that she is shackled to Aqua due to the events of My Love, but that is not the case. In Akane's eyes, their relationship is that of equality. It's why she refused to decide what Aqua must do in regards to his revenge. If she were to do so, then they would no longer be equal, and Aqua would be entirely reliant on her. If they were equals, then he has to decide for himself, and Akane will support him with whatever decision he makes. Although this is not how Aqua views it, as one of the foundations of this relationship is that Aqua wants to use Akane for his plans. While it is evident that Aqua is in love with Kana, I think there is a much more intriguing dynamic between him and Akane. What initially begins with a counterfeit relationship for work is also one that was ignited out of genuine salvation. Had Aqua not saved Akane, she would have been long gone, and he definitely did not do this solely to use her, and likely felt guilty over what happened to Ai, and did not want to see anybody to experience the same fate. While Akane is initially established as this timid but attentive girl, one who is actively analyzing her surroundings and is usually in the background, Kana is craving attention. It is obvious that these two are polar opposites, both in character and the way they are written. While Kana is riddled with various lies and excuses to protect herself, Akane has none. She has no persona. What she shows to Aqua is exactly who she is, and that's what makes her so compelling. She is able to accept every aspect of Aqua for who he is, even if he's riddled with questionable desires such as murder. She's aware that Aqua is mainly using her for her goals, but doesn't mind that she genuinely wants to save Aqua just as he saved her. Perhaps it is for herself to repay what Aqua had done for her, but there is some authenticity to it, as I think this is who Akane is, willing to go to such lengths to help the people she cares for, and accepting them for who they are.
もし俺の目的が人を殺すことだったらどうする？
一緒に殺してあげる。多分それなりに理由があると思うんだ。正しい正しくないじゃないよ。アクアくんがすっごい悪い子だとしても、私くらいはありのままの君を認めてあげなきゃって思う。罪を背負うなら私も一緒に背負いたい。そういう覚悟で彼女してるんだけどな。
But she was never able to, and I don't think she ever could have. With how Akane and Kana are written, Kana is shown to be the one capable of pulling Aqua out of this hellish lifestyle, and possibly be the one to save him from this terror, while with Akane, she is the one who drags him back into it, whether it be intentional or not. And I think Aqua is likely aware of this, and is partly why he decides to cut ties with her. As long as she's around, she will keep trying to get involved with his plans, possibly even try to dirty his hands as shown with her having a knife while trying to meet Hikaru, or even attempt to ruin his plans overall. He feels good because the longer she's around, the more likely it is that she could be in danger. While Kana is the one Aqua loves, there is definitely a much deeper connection he has with Akane, as she is the one who understands him the most, and the one who knows everything about him. She was aware of his trauma before anybody that was considered family, and was the one who deduced his background almost too accurately. His interaction with Akane give me the impression that she is the one he is closest to, as she is the first person he goes to for advice, the person he confesses his goal to, and she is the first person he told about Goro and his upbringing. Whenever Aqua goes to random locations, Akane is right there with him. She wants the best for him, even if it meant having him get together with Kana, if it meant avoiding revenge and tragedy. I would argue that she is the only character in the story that does not get butchered with this ending. I just think their conclusion easily the best among the cast. It's these things that truly highlight that Akane is the only character in the narrative who wasn't shackled to anything and was truly her own person, making her stand out among the rest of the characters. The way Ruby Hoshino's character is handled is not good, as she really contradicts a lot of the themes in the story, and she damages Ai Hoshino's character by her conclusion. A lot of her characterization and growth feels too artificial and idealistic, which comes off as shallow to me. I am aware that the point is that she is supposed to be gifted just like her mother, but the way it was written was not done well in my opinion, which is evident in her conclusion. Ruby has a really interesting backbone for her character. She starts off as an obsessed stan that will absolutely go insane if you insult her favorites. She has always been talented, and her main goal is to achieve what I failed to do. She never had the opportunity to live a fulfilling life, and was always secluded in a hospital, living an extremely short life as Serena. It's a story of an idol who was given the luxury of a second shot at life after living such a miserable one, slowly evolving into a bright and dazzling idol that is loved by everybody, even potentially more than Ai herself. The concept is awesome, and one may argue that she always has been the focal point of the story, given the fact that her character is much more tied to Ai than Aqua, as Ruby's character is essentially utilized to explore Ai's to further lengths. The story establishes that Ruby is written to be a different version of Ai, one that will be able to follow a different, healthier path that wouldn't end in tragedy, and she says this to Kana. Despite what she had seen Ai experience, she was still dedicated to the craft and wanted to become an idol out of passion. She is constantly thinking of Ai and basing her beliefs and ideologies around her, in a way shackled to the idea of Ai Hoshino. Her character was following Ai's footsteps and idolizing her, then slowly be freed from those shackles of being Ai as she peels off Ai's layers of lies and facades, and becoming her own person and growing into further heights. And this is shown various times, captivating everybody doing the performances as Kana puts it. It is after finding Goro's corpse where Ruby's deviation from Ai begins. While she starts lying just like Ai, she does it in a different manner. Rather, she is manipulative and instigating. She sets scenarios up which ensue chaos just so she could be able to secure herself a spot with the director of Dig Deep and become famous that way. It is a huge change for Ruby because she had previously insisted on wanting to be a pure honest idol during the videos with Peon. It is in this arc that has Ruby realize the harsh reality of this world, that fame only comes with lies. Ai could not have been who she was without the lies she had covered herself with, and for Ruby to achieve that level, she must do the same. But is she really okay with this? Sure, she does explode in popularity and starts getting a lot of work, but this is going down the same destructive path of Ai Hoshino. And the story was aware of this. This is further emphasized in Ruby and Kana's exchange after their argument where Ruby states that she will not become like her mother and will become a star in her own way. One who will get along with her friends and be honest with herself, rather than follow the destructive path that she was in Dig Deep. This is where my praise ends with Ruby. Two major things fatally hurt her character. The first one being everything regarding romantic implications she had towards Aqua. It felt like it was merely there to waste time as it never went anywhere nor did it mean anything. And even when Ruby kisses him, the scene is only used to transition into their movie performance and is never brought up again, which really comes off as Akka trolling rather than having this mini arc mean anything. Now, the biggest problem with Ruby is her conclusion at the end of the story. It might be one of the worst conclusions I've seen in a character for a long while. Firstly, Ruby's growth is very superficial, as you rarely get to see much of it on screen, and it comes off as sudden and unrewarding when you're told that she is slowly radiating and captivating everybody. This is why I think Dig Deep is Ruby at her best, as it is when we get to see Ruby in action and see her develop rather than have it be mentioned to us. Now with this in mind, it makes absolutely no sense why Ruby ends up becoming the second coming of Ai, when the entire point of her character is to avoid that and become her own person, which would emphasize more on Ai's character and how destructive the industry was to her. However, with this ending, it actually embraces it. As in this ending, the story is painting Ruby's current status as something positive as she is being revered by the masses for being covered in lies and hiding everything with a smile on her face. It really feels as if I'm reading a bad ending of a visual novel. This really does not come off as a good conclusion for Ruby, as it is her forever being chained to the idea of her mother, thereby assassinating everything Ruby was about. Especially when you account for the fact that she was the only person to think about the possibility that Ai was a fragile ordinary girl during the movie arc. In this fashion, she is just like everybody else, because she just became the very exact image of Ai Hoshino and we're right back to where we started. Perhaps the ending was going for a history repeats itself sort of ending, but this is absolutely not the way to go about it, when you have to completely destroy all the build-up and characterization for a character to achieve this end.